5 interview types a best boss must avoid. Hiring is the most important responsibility a best boss has. It dictates the future successes and failures of the team. You hire the heroes that save the day and the villains that cause problem after problem.
It's up to you to create a thriving environment for your team. Discover how Jason Hedge, owner of Launchable Leadership, and host Brad Webster, here to share practical tools to help you become the best boss.
What's happening, Jason? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
I'm good. So looks like you had some caffeine. Maybe not. Is that just your normal?
I'm ready. I'm excited about this material. This is good. Everybody needs to know this information. It is so important. And most bosses don't spend enough time on this. This is one of those neglected areas that becomes that Achilles heel laceration that slows them down and they don't realize it until it's too late.
Yeah, I was a retail store manager for a while and I had to interview people, and I really wish I would have had someone teach me how to interview someone so that I could get the most out of that employee.
We're going to get into one of my failure stories of me interviewing in the past, and this took a lifetime of getting to this point of understanding, and that's what we want to share about today.
Well, that's great. So let's just get into it right now. So really, the honest question is, why are so many bosses not good at interviewing?
Because they view it as a waste of time.
Wow.
They're not getting done what they love to do and is what most important for them. But they're missing the fact that this is the key hiring decision to be able to bring on either their future stars or their future problems. And if they're not taking the intentional time to find the right person that's the right fit for the organization, they're just trying to find a breathing body to fill the spot so they can go back and do their regular stuff. They're missing the boat and they are shooting themselves.
So now in a bigger organization, a lot of times they'll have an HR department, and the HR department would focus on something like that. Is that right?
Oftentimes they can be a part, but I would say the manager needs to know if they're a fit for their team. So if your organization has rules and regs in that process, you should have a stake in the end decision because they're a part of your team. So you need to go forward and be a part of that process, even though it's pulling you out of your day-to-day. When you find the right fit, you're going to get more and more time to be able to do that and spend less time interviewing or getting people that you have to spend time training because they keep on turning over because they weren't the right fit.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is basically no matter who's doing the hiring, at some point, the manager or the boss is going to have to be in the room as part of the interview process in order to give their stamp of approval. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, but just being in the room isn't enough. And so that's why we have these 5 types that we're going to go through, because I've been several of these and I've seen them take place in others, and spending the time isn't just enough. There has to be more.
Okay, so let's get into that then. Let's just take the first one. What is the first type of a bad interviewer?
So it's the monologuer. This is the boss that goes into the interview and talks the entire time. This is the one where it's all about them. They may ask a question or two, but they're selling the person on the job. They're selling the person on the company, and they're trying to get the person to say yes so they can step out of the interview process and get back to what they love to do. So the monologuer is the one who monopolizes the entire conversation, and it's really all about them. And it's not finding out is the person a best fit. It's just trying to coerce the yes out of them.
So how can that be dangerous to the interview?
So it's dangerous because it's all about the boss. It's not about the person. And yes, the interview is a bit two-way because you want to make sure that they feel that it's a fit, but you need to be very clear that they're a fit for the role and the position. And so it's dangerous because it means that they're probably getting the wrong person. They really have no idea if they're a good fit for the role.
Okay. So I'm wondering if I have another question about that. So really, okay, let's just keep moving then. So I might have some questions later to ask you about that because that really is interesting. But let's get into the second type of a bad interviewer. What does the second type of a bad interviewer look like?
So this is the answer giver. And I've partnered with several people where it was they're brand new to the interview process, and I watch them. They want to like the person that they're working with. They're a kind person, and I notice when I look over at them when the applicant is answering the questions, I see them nodding their head. I see them smiling when it's a good answer.
Mhm.
And what they're doing, they're revealing everything, saying, yes, this is the right answer. Tell me more about that to make me happier that you're a good fit and we can hang together.
So how can that be dangerous to that interview?
It's because really all you're testing out and identifying is the applicant good at reading all of your tells.
Okay.
That's what you're finding out in the process. So if they're a really good interviewer, they should totally be able to and should be trained in to read you. And that's all they're doing because they want the job. They want the paycheck, not necessarily they're a fit for the organization. And the people are doing this innocently. They don't know they're doing it until I reveal it later.
Right.
And honestly, I've probably gone a little bit to the other side. I've interviewed some people that I actually still work with that were a little traumatized that I just have the poker face the entire time.
Right,
and it kind of creeps them out a little bit, but I really want to know, are they a fit for the role? I'm not going to give them any hints on how good their answer is.
I can kind of relate to that in the past when I've interviewed because I'm pretty good at reading people. So a lot of times when I could read body language, like you said, without even realizing it intuitively, and I would be like, okay, I'm on the right track.
You're kind of working through it.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of group this. Like, I honestly, I made a joke. I would say if I can land the interview, I can usually land the job.
Right. People that are great with people, but not necessarily the great fit for the job. Of course, you could bring a lot of talent wherever you go.
Okay, so I've heard you talk about the stumped interviewer. What in the world is the stumped interviewer?
So the stumped interviewer is me when I first started. Didn't do any prep. I'm busy, 50, 60 hours a week doing what I'm doing. I get called out. Actually, I find out the applicant is there ready to go. And I do that, that really cool power play where I make them wait for me and it feels really good for my ego. Doesn't really help any part in the process, but I feel good. And, that was the most important thing to me back then. So that's in there. And then I get into the interview and I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know what I'm asking. And especially when I came up with a good question where they said, oh, that's a good question. Then I went into panic mode inside and I'm thinking, oh crap, I got to come up with another good question. So they're yammering about what their answer is to the question I just asked. I have no idea what they're saying because I'm racking my brain trying to think of another great question to try to keep it on par with the previous one. So that's the stumped questioner.
So it sounds like they're just kind of making it up as you go.
Yeah, really. That's it the whole time. And so it's dangerous because the value of the organization is really how well did I do asking great questions? And if they were able to give something, it was probably a great interview. And I assume they're a fit where I'm not really even paying attention to find out if they are a fit.
Oh, wow. So you're kind of focused on your own survival in the interview.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, it's kind of like the monologuer. It's a lot about me.
Okay, so we got a monologuer, we got an answer giver, and we got the stumped interviewer. So what's number 4?
So this is there's really 2 subtypes on this random questioner. And so really it's where the applicant is leading a lot of the conversation. And so they'll answer a question and it'll be something like, yeah, I've always completed my tasks on time. And it was especially when it was an important task like working on the Nike project. They just leave that hanging out there and it's this hook. And then the interviewer goes, oh, well, tell me more about the Nike project, which is exactly where the applicant wanted to lead them. Yeah. And then if they're really good at that, they're going to put another hook and lead them to show them all the highlights. And the interviewer isn't asking any of those difficult questions that they need to be asking to find out if they're a fit. They're just seeing their strengths and seeing that highlight again and again and again.
So tell me how that can actually get dangerous in the interview process. Like what makes that challenging?
Because they still have no idea if they're a fit for the role. They just know this person showed me how amazing they are, and I didn't do anything to find out what's on the other side of that curtain.
So what I hear you saying is basically you have these people who are star interviewees and they're really good at doing an interview and they can get the position. But it sounds like the questions that are going to be asked in that interview, because they were being led intuitively by the person being interviewed, are going to be totally different than the questions of the next applicant.
Oh yeah. And then it makes it hard to compare apples to apples as well, right? Because you've got nothing other than them showing off their best side.
Huh.
So that's it. And then there's a second type, and the other type is the one that looks up some of the best questions, like in Inc. magazine of Google ask these questions to find out if someone's a great fit. So they'll ask a question like, okay, so if you were a bird, what kind of bird would you be and why? A really great, intuitive, off the beat question, which sounds awesome to be able to ask that, because I feel powerful as an interviewer because no one's expecting that one. So I'm throwing them off their game.
Yeah.
But if I haven't thought about what a good answer is, what it means, and how do I use that to find out if they're a fit for the organization, we're just wasting time with me feeling good asking these amazing questions that mean something else to another organization, but they're not really helping me.
So I remember when I was doing interviews, again, the one that I was taught was, who are the two most influential people in your life? And we were trained to actually look for certain categories of answers. Those answers should fall into this or that. And that's what we were trained to do as an interviewer, as a manager.
And that's beautiful, because then it's purposeful and it's intentional, and you're looking for key things. Most of the time when we ask these types of questions, just because we found them online somewhere and they sounded cool, we're asking it so that it feeds our ego that we're asking cool questions, and that we just care if they can answer it or not, or if they have confidence when they answer it. And that's not really helping us find fit for the role.
Oh, I see. Okay. So going through the list, we've got the stumped interviewer, we've got the answer giver, we've got the monologuer, and now we've got, this is the fourth type that you said. The
random questioner.
The random questioner. So what's number 5? You said there's 5. So what's our 5th one?
So this is the standard question asker. This is the one that's found a solid list of questions, and no matter what, asks those questions beat by beat by beat, all the way through, no deviation. It doesn't matter what job they're interviewing for. They have their list and they always ask them. So hopefully they were great questions to start with, but there's nothing of the personality. There's nothing of the flow. There's nothing of the, oh, tell me more about that, because you really need to dig into something if you're feeling something, or there's an indication or a stumble that you want to go with, and have some flexibility. So it's great to have a starting point where you've done some preparation, but this is the over prepped side of it. And oftentimes it's boring. And if you do find out some key things, if they're kind of a fit for the role, which you might be able to do, but again, it's going to be hard if you're doing it across, especially several types of jobs. You could also be losing them because they don't feel it's a great fit. They don't want to be at a place that is so regimented unless that's what they really love and want to do. So it depends upon the organization, but it's boring for everybody involved. Asking the same questions over and over is not great. Yeah,
definitely. It's not good. So say someone out there is listening to this and they're like, wow, that one's definitely me. Like I'm one of those, or even part of 2 of those or something like that. So what's the best step? What's our best step for the audience to be the best boss?
They've got to stop doing that, and they need to take some time to do some preparation, some intentional time to be able to get things set up in a way to be able to ask great questions to find out if they're a fit for the position, if they're a fit for the team that they're going to be on. And I mean, people time and time are going to say it's the attitude. You can train a lot of the skills, but you need to find the right fit, and that attitude, that match for the team have to be the primary things you're looking for. And how you ask the questions and what kind of questions you're asking are the key part about that. And so I'm going to say it's invest in the preparation on the questions is the best step to move forward. So personally, my favorite questions are the behavioral based questions. Tell me about a specific time when you had difficulty with a coworker. Tell me what happened. And did it get resolved, and how? Because their past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And there are some great people that can make up something on the spot, but in general, you're going to get something real out of that because they've got to go back and think about a real time and example and bring it up. And so that's where you're going to find out the best thing. And I like to ask a lot of those questions about the stress side of the role to be able to see how do they handle that, because that's usually where the real identity comes out. They can fake it when it's all easy. But when there's pressure, when there's difficulty, do they have a lot of examples about the difficulties they've had with coworkers because they're a difficult coworker to work with? So these are some good things that are coming out in the process. So that best step is do some intentional time, putting some questions together and tailoring them for a specific role. And it focuses on some of those stressors, some of those difficulties, and then going through it. So I think that's the best thing. And so to be able to help people, we've actually put together one of actually the list that I use, the basic list of it. And so it's an interview form because in California, we're not allowed to take pictures, which would help us remember who the people are
Right.
and any personal data. We don't want to write on their application. And so on this interview form, I've got standard questions. I may deviate some. I've got a legal question down at the end that I do. And I've got a little rating 1 through 5 and a little spot for any notes of things that highlight that are going to help me remember their response in the future, which also helps me compare apples to apples because I'm asking similar questions with each person that I'm interviewing. Because after 10 people in a row, my mind is mush and it's so hard to remember out what's there. And then I flip it over after the interview and I do an overall evaluation and a ranking. Are they worthy to go on to the next interview? And you should have more than one interview. You should have someone below you do some initial ones and then bring it up to you.
Okay.
I also like panel ones where there's 2 or 3 people that are interviewing them. And this form is great. After the applicant leaves, each person silently fills out that backside of the form. And then you start talking and discussing. And then you find out some interesting things because people are looking at different aspects and it can really open up your eyes to be able to see, oh, great fit, but I didn't see that. Can we help counter that? Or is that a deal breaker?
Right. Okay. So you answered the next question I had. I had one more question because I was thinking, so if the small business owner or the business owner or even the middle manager was creating questions that were powerful questions, I was going to say, do they need to be different based on the role they're interviewing for? And you said yes. So that's what I heard.
Absolutely, they should. This one of the problems of the 5 types is asking the same questions regardless of the role.
Right.
And there should be things that are specifically tailored. There's different stresses for each job. And you want to find out, can they actually do that job? Not just can they do a job in the past.
Right.
So yes, they should be focused on special. You may have some key questions that are always there, but you should have some focus specifically for the role.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you have different departments. Like for instance, at an organization I worked with, I was interviewing for a marketing department position. But the main thing is it was highly creative. I was in a corporate setting. I had little to no interaction with the public. And so a lot of it had to be coming up with ad ideas and things like that. So that was very different than an interview they're going to have with a teller or some sort of customer service representative.
Absolutely.
Somebody who's going to be outward facing, someone who's going to be in a sales position or something like that. It's going to be a very different role, very different stresses, very different.
Right, because you're asking about internally and the creativity in one and your interactions with others in a speedy basis for the teller. Absolutely.
Okay.
That helps prove it.
That's amazing. So 5 bad interview styles.
Yeah, the 5 interview styles best boss must avoid because everyone wants to become the best boss and you've got to avoid these 5 styles. Otherwise, you can't be a best boss and stay there. Well, you can get the form, and that's going to be at bestboss.org/2. So just the number 2 in there. Okay. And they can, for free, download that interview guide form and go at it. Have that as a basis. Look up some behavioral-based questions. Get feedback from other people. Get feedback from some of the best employees in the job of what are great questions to ask. They're also good people to have in the panel interview because they have to work with them, your team.
Right.
So that's a whole nother story in
awesome.
there. But bestboss.org/2. Download it now.
That sounds great.
All right.
Today's best step moves you closer toward becoming the best boss with growing profits, an engaged team, and a legacy with lasting impact. If you found this helpful and know of others ready to become the best boss, please subscribe and take a moment to share a rating of how valuable this podcast has been. Visit us online at bestboss.org to connect more with Jason and Brad and other best bosses.
Okay, so Jason, really quick, what's the worst interview experience you've had?
That I conducted. So it was me as the stumped interviewer.
Okay.
Sitting in that meeting. So it's kind of what I alluded to before. And they said that, oh, that's a great question. And it really made them think. And I felt this rush inside, like I'm a powerful person in here and I'm a great interviewer. And all I did was think about the rest of the thing. Oh, what in the world is my next question going to be? And I had no idea what they said. On the other side of things, we had two crazy stories of people that came in. I love some of the HR forums where we have some crazy answers that people have given or things that they've done. I love in the office when they're interviewing for the next regional manager and some of the crazy things that came in there. But we did have someone one time that did bring in their lunch for the interview because they were on their lunch of their other job, their current job that they had another one where it wasn't formal. It was a restaurant manager, but we assumed they're at least going to wear a polo and slacks or something, but he was in shorts.
Wow.